Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back in the video today, and today we're going to be talking about a potential trade for the Los Angeles Clippers. As today in the NBA, there was a major trade in the NBA to send three-time All-Star and former Rookie of the Year and one-time All-NBA Bradley Beal to the Phoenix Suns to pair a trio of Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant. Not a lot of people are a fan of this trio, and understandable. There's not a lot of defense between these three guys. A whole lot of scoring, not a whole lot of defense. But I don't know. And also, a lot of other people are complaining about how the Suns don't have a lot of bench depth. But in my theory, after this trade has happened for the Phoenix Suns, I do think now they will trade DeAndre Ayton for some good defense and some decent bench depth, so they improve on those two things right there. That's what I think Phoenix target would be on a DeAndre Ayton trade now that they've acquired Bradley Beal from the Washington Wizards. But getting into Chris Paul is headed to Washington in this deal, it makes me think of, that OKC trade where Chris Paul got sent to OKC, and we all thought, Chris Paul's not going to stay in OKC. The only reason I'm thinking about this is because I saw a TikTok of Chris Paul talking about it on a podcast the other day. There was once I got traded to OKC for Westbrook, there was a whole bunch of rumors about OKC trading me somewhere else or me being bought out, and I didn't hear from OKC's GM Sam Presti for a couple of days, which scared me, until I just got in contact with a couple of the players and told them I wanted to be here. Even though that kind of situation happened with OKC with their young team, that was a couple years ago. That was 4 years ago, and Chris Paul's 38 now. He's at the end of his career. He wants to win an NBA championship. And the Wizards, they could re-sign both Kristaps Porzingis and Kyle Kuzma with keep Chris Paul and a couple other young players, and they're still not in championship. Still not in championship contention. Now, if they were to re-sign Kyle Kuzma, keep Chris Paul, re-sign Porzingis, and have their young guys like Avajda, Corey Kispert, Johnny Davis, Landry Shamet, I could see the Wizards at the point where they're maybe a play-in team, possibly if lucky, but that's not where they're going to be. And Chris Paul is not only do I think Chris Paul doesn't want to be in Washington, I don't think Washington wants him there. So what the reports are right now is that Washington is trying to get Phoenix to get a third team into this trade and sending Chris Paul somewhere else. And the number one team that is interested in doing this is the Los Angeles Clippers. And it would be very interesting to see Chris Paul return to the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, ultimately, I thought the Clippers would be in contention to re-sign Russell Westbrook. But in my opinion, even though Chris Paul is, up there in age, I think Chris Paul is the better fit on the Los Angeles Clippers if they were to potentially jump into a three-team trade with the Wizards and the Suns. You look at all the good shooters they have and how good of a, Russell Westbrook, he's a good playmaker, right? And he did a really solid job with playmaking with the Clippers and putting, making the right plays when it comes to their shooters. But I don't think not as good as Chris Paul will. Chris Paul had an amazing season passing-wise this year. Averaged around a little bit over 9 assists this season. Was fantastic. And honestly, if he goes to the Clippers and is signed in an additional three-team trade, if the Clippers are added into a three-team trade with the Suns and the Wizards, I really do see Chris Paul having a better assisting year. I mean, I think Chris Paul's points will probably go down. His points per game will probably go down to from 14 to probably like 10 or 11 on the Clippers. But I think his assists per game might be as high as they have ever been. I mean, I don't know what his career high in assists have been in his career, but it's probably been pretty high because he's one of the best passing point guards in NBA history. If you view it as probably around a top 7, top 8 point guard in NBA history. But I mean, yes, he hasn't won a ring, but still. But if you look at all the good three-point shooters and good catch-and-shoot guys that shoot a lot of catch-and-shoot three-pointers that Chris Paul would be playing with, I want to go over a couple. Nicholas Batum, and I'm going to go over what these players shot, what their three-point percentage was last season. 39% from three from Nicholas Batum this season. Eric Gordon, 37%. Robert Covington, 39%. Kawhi Leonard, 42%. Terrence Mann, 39%. I am going to go over Marcus Morris Sr., but I think he would have to be involved in this three-team trade. But Marcus Morris, 36%. Norman Powell, 40%. Paul George, 37%. And most of those guys you're looking at getting three-point, catch-and-shoot looks. And Chris Paul will have a lot of opportunities for a lot of assists in L.A. And he'll have some decent opportunities to maybe score the basketball as well. I just think the fit works really well with the Clippers. Westbrook did a great job in LA for the half season and their one playoff series against the Suns. Against the Suns. But I still do think that I really do think that Chris Paul is a better fit for that Clippers team than Russell Westbrook is. And like I said, Westbrook did a great job. But with all the catch and shooters they have and some of the good shot takers they have, shot makers, not only shot makers and shot takers, but some of these players, shooting shots that Chris Paul would be able to get them the ball and how good of a passer he is. I think he's a great fit for the Clippers. And, there would be a little bit to worry about because now you have a third player who's injury prone, or maybe you could view as four because Eric Gordon's also injury prone. But you have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. They have their injury concerns, and so does Chris Paul. Is that something to worry about? That is something you should probably worry about when it comes to signing Chris Paul. But at the same time, I still think he is a great fit for them. I really do think he is an amazing fit for their team, their whole around team. If you view it, their whole roster, he fits with their whole, everything that they're going, everything that is going on with their team. And I think Chris Paul would be that. Just I don't know how to say it, but he'd put them together as a team. But he didn't have last year they had Russell Westbrook at the end of the year, but I think Chris Paul would be a really good fit for the LA Clippers. Let's talk about how the Clippers would manage this three-team trade. So I would think that the top two players the Clippers would want to send over would be Marcus Morris Sr. and Amir Coffey. So I was thinking Chris Paul heads to the LA Clippers, and then Amir Coffey and Marcus Morris Sr. go to the Wizards. Even though Marcus Morris Sr. played great last year, shot I think 37% from three, and then averaged 11.4 points per game. He's on a horrible contract, $17 million contract, plus it's an expiring deal. Amir Coffey, I see him as the Wizards. I see the Wizards being interested in Amir Coffey, and yes, he's a solid player. He has some good things in him, but he's not going to be any part of the Clippers rotation. So the Wizards, for the Clippers, it shouldn't be a problem sending him over to the Wizards. So you send Amir Coffey and Marcus Morris Sr. to the Washington Wizards for Chris Paul. You pair him with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George in a starting lineup of, I guess the starting lineup for the Clippers would be CP3 at the point guard. The shooting guard would be Eric Gordon. Small forward would be Paul George. Power forward would be Kawhi Leonard. Center would be Zubac. And then sixth man would be Norman Powell. Then also coming off the bench with Norman Powell would be Terrence Mann, plus Robert Covington, Nicholas Batum, a couple other solid players they got off the bench. So it'd be I think the Clippers would have a really solid roster if they added in Chris Paul. Giving up a little too much, but I know Morris might be a little bit hard to get rid of, but at the same time, he, definitely his minutes, went down last year. Wasn't playing that much in the playoffs. Wasn't playing that much at the end of the year. So I don't think it should be a real problem for the Clippers to get rid of him in a potential trade to land Chris Paul. You guys have your thoughts on the potential trade for the LA Clippers to land Chris Paul and pair him up with Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and that Clippers squad? That's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace out.